morning, everybody. Let me add my thank you and my welcome to those that you've already had. Also echo the ask, please tell us what we can do better and what we don't do as well. And you are going to get time to hear from Booking.com folks, as you already have. But in general, we want to hear from you. And actually, it's useful probably for you to hear from each other. So the agenda for the next little while, I'm actually going to ask the questions rather than share the opinions. And I'm going to bring some highly qualified people up onto the stage to answer them. So joining me in a second as our panel will be Utashai Charanachit, who's the CEO of Onyx, Sankar Narayan, who's the CEO and Managing Director of SiteMinder, and then third, Brian Bailey, who's the VP of Revenue and Distribution for Minor Hotels. So please welcome our panelists to the stage. So gentlemen, the first worry's gone, right? When you're backstage and you can't see out here, the first question is there going to be an audience when I actually come out? So
yeah, it's great.
That one's covered, so thank you very much. It's amazing how quickly the phones come out these days, right?
The phones come out. Love that.
Ladies and gents, it's good to know who you're hearing from, right? And I've given you a name and who these gentlemen work for, but not much else. So I'm actually just going to ask each of you, if I can, to introduce yourselves a little bit, share a little bit about your business. And I've set a little challenge for everybody as well, which is to include one thing in their introduction, which is a little different, a little bit interesting, maybe isn't always what you say when you introduce yourselves to a business contact. So I did give them a little bit of warning. I normally will avoid going straight down the line, but on this occasion, Utashai, I will start with you and let you introduce yourself first.
Yes, so very much good morning to everyone. It's an honor to be here, and thanks Booking.com and the team to kindly invite me and our colleague here to participate in this forum. I think for Onyx Hospitality, we pretty much grew in the past 10 odd years from national player to become a regional player. Currently, we have about 44 property actively own and operate across about 6 countries now, mainly focusing in Hong Kong, Thailand, and now going to be a big portfolio growing in Malaysia. So as we're moving along now, I think the approach for Onyx is going to be pretty much regional focus under 3 brands, under Amari, which is hotel and resort, Ozo, which is mid-scale hotel, and Sharma service apartment. So pretty much our portfolio spectrum is not huge, but enough to stay focused and concentrate in Southeast Asia. And hopefully we can grow more business together with partner like Booking.com. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I think many of you already know us. Sankar Narayan, who is CEO of SiteMinder. I think we have many of you using our solutions. Who we are a technology solutions provider. I'll come back to what we do. We actually have over one of the leading players in the world, over 100 million reservations that are actually carried every year. And we have nearly 40,000 properties around various parts of the world. Many of you think of SiteMinder as a channel manager. Yeah, that's the way we were born 15 years back. But what's not known is how the platform was being used as a revenue optimizer. People choose to do a lot of revenue work in SiteMinder, and that's where the future direction of our business is. How do we actually drive convergence between distribution, revenue optimization, and intelligence? We have so much data in our system that we can actually provide deep insights. So it's the convergence theme that is actually really, really strong about SiteMinder. And one less known fact that we don't do, at the time that I joined, the business was started by 2 Mikes, 15 years back in Sydney. And at the time that I joined, we had 2 Mikes, 2 Jonathans, 2 Marks, and 2 Davids in my management team. Not much for diversity. It's changed a lot.
No, that is a new bar for diversity, but not necessarily in the right direction.
No, it's gone. It's gone. It's good. It's great. Over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Sawadee Krap. to the Thai members of the audience. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm feeling that I'm amongst industry royalty, Cinderella at the ball today, and reaching the sad realization that wearing this microphone is probably the closest I'll ever come to being a member of Blackpink. So I'll take what I can get. My name is Brian. I look after revenue distribution and business intelligence for Minor Hotels. My background is in revenue management in both airlines and hotels, and I was able to embarrass the gentleman next to me this morning by reminding him that we actually work together at Virgin Australia.
My mistake.
So obviously I didn't make a big impression because he didn't remember me. I'm with Minor Hotels, and for those of you unfamiliar with Minor Hotels, we are a Thailand headquartered and originated business. Now we have moved ourselves out of our home base of Asia. We're now having 550 hotels under our brands in 55 countries, 8 brands altogether. And we are pretty much globally positioned at the moment in the way that we are expanding our brands and through our acquisitions. To come to James's point, it's going to be a piece of information that you file away as being absolutely useless to know. I speak some rather obscure languages, Scandinavian languages. So now you know that about me, and I'll move on to real questions.
How many is some, out of interest?
I speak Danish, I speak Norwegian, and I can get away with Swedish.
There you go.
Pretty sure there's not many people who grew up where you did who speak any of those, let alone the 3. But for now, I'm actually going to stay with you for a second, Brian, because it's a very interesting moment to ask you how you've seen the partnership with Booking to this point, but also what do you hope for the future, because you're very much in this quite enormous expansion, really, of geographies, countries. You're talking before around how your own operating model needs to change. So have you seen your partnership with Booking now, and how do you see it in the future with a very different makeup of your business?
I think a good way to describe it is that we have had relationships with Booking for a long time across the pieces of our business. And I was listening to our Chief Commercial Officer who's joined us around 90 days ago now from Accor, and he was describing his experience with us as we are 3 to 4 businesses, which we really are. We have an operation in Australia and New Zealand, which is quite semi-autonomous, and Australia for Australia. For Asia, the Middle East and Africa, we operate from our headquarters here from Bangkok. And in Europe, we have acquired around 96% of the shareholding of NH Hotels based out of Madrid, and they are Europe, North America centric. We've got a lot of work to do on our side, which is what James was alluding to, in bringing together to harmonize, to make more seamless, and to unlock the potential of our business by better integrating those pieces. So that's a piece that we are very focused on. And that naturally brings into play the relationship with Booking.com. It's absolutely fair to say that we view Booking as a strategic partner on a global basis. We met with some of your team members yesterday in a private meeting, which was fantastic, with our Chief Commercial Officer. And I think he made very clear that we are aligned to the point of wanting to have even better strategic plans alongside Booking for achieving our business goals and helping you to achieve yours. On the business side of what we're focused on, we are taking an approach very much focused on net ADR and net RevPAR in order to optimize what we're calling our revenue streams, which is the mix of the traditional market segmentation and channel view. And that is naturally going to bring about the opportunity for us to discuss more clearly with a partner like Booking how we can make that work to the benefit of all our revenue and profitability moving forward. So we're here, and we're proud to be here, I'm sure, sitting alongside Booking.
Mm-hmm.
Challenge accepted, I think, to see how we can help you there. Perhaps I'm going to zip to this end to avoid always going through. So Yutashay, come to yourself. How have you seen your partnership with Booking? And maybe if there was one thing that you'd like us to be able to do differently with you in the next year or two from the past, what would that number one thing be?
Yeah, so I'm not going to take this panel to negotiate on commission, right? But I think as a hotel owner, one of the many hotel owner, right, we commit huge amount of capital to build a hotel, take years to finance and pay back, right? Find the right GM to run it properly, deliver the best guest experience. But somehow with the brand that we have now, and with Booking.com and many other partners that we're working with, we try to build the value on price. And for the past 10 years, right, the portfolio keep growing, and we have pretty much service apartment, mid-scale hotel, and upper upscale hotel and resort, which pretty much the top source market mainly is, for us, is mainly regional, Malaysia, Singapore, and if you stretch it all the way to Middle East, to Israel, and UK, and Australia, which is very traditional. But we have that mix of kind of geo-source that we want to build the value to the brand. And with Booking.com, we try to go against the flow of reducing price, or the urge to reducing price to get more volume. I think for online hospitality, we want to build and grow the price as we're moving along. And somehow, from 2019, I share with a colleague, my team successfully maintained the price growth to be above 6%. And even last year, we even challenged you guys to push to about almost 22% in terms of ADR. Yes, Thailand, Malaysia is still a soft market, very competitive. The price is $200, $300 for a 5-star hotel, right? But I think for me, we need to make sure we find the right balance to grow the both price and volume, and try to maintain that price, not try to give up on the effort that we put for so many years. And at the end, it's about data, it's about forecasting, it's about the system that you have on the ground. I have all the wizards working for me on data analytics, on system that we want to be able to forecast. I go on trade show to talk to partner offline, partner corporate account. For me as a CEO, you cannot really sit in the head office and tell the BD team to acquire more hotel every year. You have to be on the ground and really try to observe what is the trend. And as we are seeing now, I think for APAC, the price is growing. The price is growing, and we cannot really undercut each other as we know. We need to grow the price, and with all the big brands like the Four Seasons, Marriott, they have their own platform, right, in which they try to protect. But for us as a regional player, we want to grow this with the right partner like Booking.com.
So you're very focused on making sure that guest experience leaves an impression of your brand on your customers. Is there something that you would like Booking to do to make it easier for you to communicate that brand?
Yeah, I think right now people travel not based on brand anymore. It's about how that brand can give the right experience, right? And at the end, I just came back from Singapore, right? And quote from Mr. Sonia of Rosewood, right? She all about experience creation with Rosewood, and she kept growing the brand as a luxury brand to compete against the Four Seasons or even Park Hyatt or even Mandarin Oriental. But for luxury segment, it's all very much about how much you can put up with experience, But I think for us, mid-scale or upper upscale, we still need the volume. And I think for Booking.com and everyone else, we need to grow volume. We cannot really ignore in terms of volume reduction. We need to grow volume, but again, we need to grow on price. Higher the price, higher the commission, win-win both sides. So I think for me, it's about how to create the premium to the brand on price, and hopefully our good old revenue team will be that protector on price and try to balance the rate as well as the volume. And I think for me, that is still a vicious cycle as we go moving forward out of COVID, James.
Understood. So I think we should pass the magic wand, so to speak, to Sanka and say, if you could wave your magic wand and change something about where you are with Booking, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's really good to talk about the journey we've been on and then talk about the journey ahead of us. Yep. If you look at historically, we started life in silos as a channel manager. Distribution. You had distribution, you had revenues, you have intelligence, and if you look at industry, it's a very fragmented decision-making industry. Much more than any other industry that you have. But what we're finding, and this is part of the journey that we're heading to, is we have deep engagement. We have the leading position on a global basis on channel management. And of course, Booking has been a very key partner of ours from the very early days, strengthening the channel management and the stability of the connection and how do we actually make it seamless for our customers and for all of you. But the real big opportunity ahead is not on connections, is what do you do with it? Talked about optimizing channels for inventory, for revenue, for price, for demand, where they come from. And what we find, and this is where the platform is already a lot more powerful, when I said before, is it's a lot more than just connecting a distribution channel and then let somebody else do the job. They're all mixed together. And the work that we're doing with Booking is how do we make these decisions dynamic? How do we optimize it on a continuous basis? If we see demand for a weekend in certain areas that is driven out of certain channels, how can you spin up a quick rate plan or a promo, drive more demand, and be able to turn it off? Mm-hmm. So flexibility and speed to market is so much more important in the future. And we all went through it, COVID. We had to make decisions very quickly on a dynamic basis. Mm-hmm. Yep. And especially when we have reduced labor workforce, labor has not fully come back. Mm-hmm. I think the ability for us to be able to optimize that actual execution path along with insights is going to be the critical differentiation between somebody who can drive 20, 30, 40% improvement in profit margins and RevPAR. And the magic wand on Booking is we got a future in terms of how we want to strengthen the connection to make it a lot more dynamic. Mm. And the magic wand is I want it now. I don't want it in 12 months. So within our team, that's where we are. So there's a lot more we can do to really make it more powerful and dynamic and actually drive better value for all of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. I'd always love it to be faster too. I'm at least glad you said you'd like us to go faster to the intended destination. If you said you wanted us to go faster in a different direction, it would be more concerning. Yeah. Maybe stay with you for a second, because I'd love to just, given your business, many countries, 100 million transactions, one of the advantages being not just, but included as a channel management solution, yeah. you get a good visibility.
Yeah.
So what are the trends in the types of travel that you're seeing now? How do they compare to before COVID? And how are they changing, if they're changing, through the recovery period? And as we get, not quite, but probably getting close back to something that I'll call normal, for want of a better name.
Absolutely. We were noticing a lot of trends and changes in travel, and it's really interesting to see it go through the various regions. Different countries or regions, responded differently to COVID, mm-hmm. but the patterns were very consistent. Yep. So during COVID, international shutdown, everybody went to domestic tourism, and then you actually had driving distance. Everybody was driving back and forth, and we saw it. We saw it in Amers, we saw it in Australia, we saw it in parts of Asia, we saw it in Europe quite a lot. And then the recovery profile has also been very consistent. Mm. People then, they used to drive 2 hours out, and now then they said, okay, you know what, I'm going to have confidence and drive 4 and fly 3 hours and take a short haul flights. What is still lagging, and particularly in this part of the world, is international tourism, hasn't come back. Yeah. I did a review back in our offices. I looked at region, country by country by country. there's about one country where it's come back in this region to near, we're talking 80, 90%. Most of the regions are much more depressed in terms of what the pre-COVID run rates are. So you're seeing traditional travel patterns emerge back, but what's being held back is airfares. We all know that. For those of you who flew in or intending to fly out, know exactly what is the cost of airfares are, and that's playing a constraint in the amount of travel. It's just not enough capacity. And so I think we're really looking forward to international travel providing that additional stimulation for travel, and that is really valuable for countries like Thailand and lots of regions around the world, Indonesia, all of them, very heavy international tourist destinations is a net beneficiary of that particular trend, and that's where we're looking forward to.
Well, I think and I hope the good news will be, I'm confident it will come back. If I just think about the view across the globe from the booking side for a second, different regions of the world took a different approach to COVID.
Yeah.
The Americas opened up first, Europe second, Asia third. And that was the inverse of sort of the strictness of the lockdowns and the effect to which countries managed health. And the US began domestic. I can say now the US international is big again, and I'm sure the desire will come back. And speaking for a second as someone who's based in Europe, the European desire to start traveling long haul again is there. The realization isn't fully, but I'm sure it's coming. Go that way and then come back. Brian, anything? What do you see? And I guess again, you've got a new business and an existing business to think about trends of, but are you seeing similar things, different things?
I think it's interesting that what we're experiencing is pretty much aligned with what we hear from the large data aggregators as well. When you talk to STR around destinations, when I was at an event this week where OAG was present and they were talking about the air uplift situation, and I think what we're seeing in the destinations we operate is representative, certainly in regards, and I support Sankar's comment around airfares. We all know that airfares are impacting to some degree. OAG is predicting that capacity in Southeast Asia is going to remain within Southeast Asia at the moment. There's not going to be a lot of international to Southeast Asia growth. So we are still going to see some slowness, I would say, in terms of true international traffic. I think so many things have changed. So Thailand returned. Thailand's an affordable and a beautiful destination, but not every market, obviously. We're all still facing what's going on in China, and China has taken a lot longer than what we expected to return to some level of normality. And with what we're now hearing about the financial situation in China, that outlook could be even longer. We have destinations where some traditional markets are also slower than they were. UK, outbound, for example, into the Maldives, the Middle East, and to a lesser extent, Thailand is also slower. And of course, the situation in Russia has impacted what we've experienced in many destinations as well. However, there is a large proportion of Russians who are resident outside of Russia who have still been able to travel. So I think it's very variable on what we're seeing. We've seen an enormous amount of growth back into Thailand this year. 16% RevPAR growth, I think, into our owned hotels in Thailand, of which we own quite a few, and slightly higher into our total portfolio in Thailand. But places like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, which are impacted by lack of air uplift, are still slower to return. And I shouldn't forget Australia, of course, Sankar mentioning the Australian market. Australia, our business is highly Australia for Australia. It's supported itself to a great degree during COVID, and Australians are still really only travelling short haul at the moment. There's, international travel outbound has not really returned for Australians, and short haul for Aussies means going to Bali typically or travelling domestically.
I was about to say the Australian definition of a short journey and mine, given where I grew up, are a little different.
Exactly.
Should I perhaps come to you? So what do you see from the traveller side, but maybe also, you're also owning and operating hotels. How's the recovery been in terms of staffing, recruiting, training? Like, how was it to reopen, in essence, properties as well?
Right now, I don't hire any staff who graduate from Lausanne. Let's put it that way. It's that simple. What you learn in Lausanne or Swiss hotel school, it's not working. It's not going to work. It's not going to get you far. Because the way we run and operate hotel now need to go completely different. You have to go on lean manning. You have to consolidate function. There's an expiration date in every role, right? You rotate every 12 or 18 or even 3 years. For me, the word dynamic is a big word for me, because to survive the COVID, 3 years of COVID, whoever thought that COVID gonna last this long? And now we have the flight is too expensive. They need more time to train the pilot, to repair the plane. Currency in APAC is super weak. Thai baht, Japanese yen, rock bottom, relative to US dollar. So right now we have to really restructure how we take this, because at the end, the way we price going forward now, we have to really take into account of the currency fluctuation as well. It's not we're going to be pricing in US dollar tomorrow, but we need to really take into account that the cost of operating is getting higher and higher without you knowing it. Buying chicken or buying vegetable now, it become like a madhouse, because whoever gives the highest price, you get it. But right now, I think we are moving toward the period that we need to be very alert how you want to survive this, because at the end, you're going to end up working so hard, but all the money gone to the banks, commission to Booking.com, as well as paying the staff and the bonus every year. So it's just how much more can you do with this industry as a hotel and hospitality? For me, there's so many factors that really compress us to be very mindful, very active, very dynamic, and really force us to think out the box, despite all the data or the system that we have on hand. So I think for me, it becomes something that we need to relearn as the business owner and operator, and be very fair as well. Because at the end, we owning the asset yields so much money, but how sustainable can it be at the bottom line? We're gonna have anything left, or we just keep our guests happy, keep the rating in Booking.com above 8.5, and being sustainable, also a big expensive word, right? That we have to live up to that expectation from our guests. So for us, is we need to be very dynamic in terms of how we're going to be managing a hotel. And the whole cluster or decentralized, I believe now everyone, after COVID, moving to go back to decentralized. But some area, Brian rightly said, may have to be centralized because of the talent shortage, which we are still facing today after 3 years of COVID.
So you touched on sustainability, and we're going to come back there in a minute. I also, two other things stuck. One is it's a clear challenge to make sure we continue to be worth our commission and demonstrate that to you. But you mentioned no one expected 3 years of COVID.
Yes.
Totally agree. Silly example, we had a new hire at Booking who was in another country, and I had a Zoom call with them just as the first lockdown happened. And I think when we closed that call, we said something like, it'd be nice to meet face to face in 4 or 6 weeks' time. It was 2 years, 3 months before we could actually be in the same place and ever meet. So talking about predicting the unpredictable, I'm going to come back to the far end. Brian, generative AI. Everyone's got an opinion, I think, or almost everybody. I don't think anybody knows the answer, but if we give you a little crystal ball for a second, how do you think that's going to change the industry? How's that going to change travel?
Firstly, can I borrow your crystal ball? Mine's all used up at the moment, following COVID. And we were joking about this at the start when we were preparing that Gen AI is one of those topics that seems to come up on every panel, and every industry document that you read has some reference to Gen AI. I don't purport to be any form of expert on the area, so I like to listen to people. This week I was at another industry event with Hedna and Omri, the CEO of Agoda was presenting, and he was asked specifically about generative AI. And it was interesting to listen to somebody like him, who is the leader of a tech company. You know, they say themselves, it is not a travel company, it's a tech company. And his comment was that he doesn't expect to wake up tomorrow and all of us be using ChatGPT for many of our tasks during the day. And that's how I see it as well. I have a 16-year-old daughter, however, where I see it quite differently, and the impact of Gen AI on her life and what it will be in the future. I think there are a lot of use cases for our industry. Anything that is repetitive and transactional can be used. I think customer contact, responses to customers in an operational environment are use cases for Gen AI. I think that language is a major one, and I mean, we face language all the time, and we face team members whose mother tongue may be different to many of their guests. So I think there's a real case for language in terms of customer interaction. And I think, as we all know, including our distribution partners, content remains king. We talked about it years ago, but it still remains king. And the opportunity to generate content through the use of AI is a great opportunity, particularly things like language translations. So I think there are a number of use cases for Gen AI. I think it's also interesting whenever, and I have read a little bit, whenever we bring up this thing about AI, we talk about generative. I'm also interested in the predictive AI aspect, because predictive AI is what we're using already to some extent with revenue management tools. And it's going to be what's going to enable us to better segment our customer bases in future and be able to personalize the interactions that we have with customers. So I think AI in general has a part to play, and we need to all come to grips with where those use case applications are.
It's a great point, actually. It's easy to get generative AI as one subset. So generative, in essence, the 5 core models that all of the big tech companies are building. You can generate a piece of text from an instruction. You can generate a summary from a longer piece of text. You can generate a translation. You can generate an image from text, and you can generate text from image. That's, in essence, the 5 core blocks. Sanka, what are you thinking? Where's your crystal ball going, or is it very cloudy?
Yeah, no, it's cloudy in parts, but it's our job to actually see through the clouds. That's exactly where our job is. It's not easy. It's been challenging with all the changes that have happened in the last 3 years, but I think we can see patterns and trends. So when the whole thing about generative AI started, I said, okay, let me actually see what ChatGPT says I should do in a strategy perspective. I said, what should SiteMinder's strategy be? And I said, what kind of response it came? It was actually pretty good, like half decent to actually start off with in terms of the things you do. So
for the record, we did exactly the same exercise.
Yeah, you did the same thing.
And it is quite good, but remember, it just summarizes what is on the internet. So it basically took the stuff we'd published and played it back to us.
Played it back to us. It was good. So,
it's a very nice self-validation echo chamber.
Oh, no, it's good. We are on the right path now. That's what ChatGPT says. But seriously, going back to it, the thematics are the same. So we are starting to use Gen AI on our customer, two forms. One is our customer interactions and translations. I think that's where we're really finding, we are multilingual. We do service and support in 12 languages around the world, and we have a decentralized work teams. It's not that we don't have German speakers, but when they go out for lunch and when they have, when you have cover, where do you, then becomes ineffective and inefficient for you to have backup and redundancy in language by language. And so we said, okay, we'll have English translators, English support. We actually translated through Gen AI and see what the NC-SAT is. The NC-SAT, in fact, is pretty good. So it actually does a very effective job in translation. So we're using Gen AI in our customer interactions and also content. I think content is where we can actually have, we can actually make a meaningful difference. So we're actually embedding it within the platform and how you use Gen AI for content purposes. And as I said, the real thinking also is beyond Gen, is actually predictive AI. That's where a lot of our thinking is going as well.
So if there's two things that probably in a panel like this you would expect us to brought up, one is probably Gen AI, and the other is probably sustainability. And we're just a little short of time to ask everyone about all. Yutasha, you touched on sustainability earlier, so I'll come to you for this. So what are your efforts so far for your business from a sustainability perspective? And how do you see this? Like, is it changing traveler behavior? Will it change traveler behavior?
I think sustainable is a big word, right? And one of our hotel in Bangkok now try to really live up to that experience in terms of banqueting, coffee break, everything is localized, sourcing, and make sure we control the food waste. And when we build hotel, we need always need to have a backup in terms of renewable, solar, or really recycle the water for sanitation or landscape. So as a contractor as well, I think we are very mindful how to put the right technology to enhance our new property or aging property to ensure that the utility bill is not going to go sky high as we're moving forward. Because I believe in the future, I think water and electricity will be a very rarefied commodity apart from gasoline, which is completely now slowly moving toward electrics. But again, I think sustainable is a big word. It's a long journey. You need to believe and commit in the longer term. For 85 to 89% of our hotel now is a member of the sustainable hotel under Booking.com, and we try to enforce that with the ISO process as well, moving toward next year to make sure that everyone is aware of this mandate. So it's very important, but it's a journey, as I said. So hopefully we will contribute back to the world. But I think for me, based on revenue now, we want to contribute back as much as possible to the local vendor and supplier, rather than try to source everything so far outside of Thailand or in the region, away from the region.
So Yutasha's just done something amazing. There's a big red clock here that you can't see, but I can. And he's managed to finish with 004 left on that clock, which is pretty spectacular, because you get in trouble as the moderator if you miss by too much.
Beautifully timed.
Exactly. So that, I think, is a perfect way. Can I just ask everyone to give a massive round of applause and say a huge thank you to the panelists next to me?
And thank you to you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thank you.